Hi, my name is Nick Borson, and this is the fifth in a series of videos about learning to code using PowerShell. These videos are aimed at non-programmers who want to learn to code, and we're using PowerShell as a first programming language. And these kind of build on each other, so if you haven't watched the previous videos, you may want to go back and start at the beginning, and I'll include a link to the playlist in the description. So this video is kind of a quick one, and it doesn't really introduce any new concepts exactly, but it's just going to show how we can take the script that we created in the last video and simplify it a bit by taking a different approach. It's often possible to have, there's often more than one way to solve a problem when you're in a program. And so this is just an example of how we can maybe think a little bit creatively and find a way to do something in an easier way than the way we thought of first. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and give it a try. Okay, so in the last video, we wrote a script that to tell you how old you are given your birthday, and compared your current date with the birthday. So just to review a little bit, currently as I'm recording this, the current date is March 27th of 2021. So if I say get current age, and I say that my birthday is, let's say, March 1st of 2000, then it computes that I'm 21, because 2021 is 21 years after 2000, and the current date, March 27th, is after my birthday. And likewise, if I say my birthday is March 27th, then it's exactly my birthday, and I've just turned 21. But if I say that my birthday is March 30th, then it's not yet my birthday, and therefore I'm only 20. So the script, in order to calculate my age correctly, it can't just look at the year. It also has to look at the month and day and compare that with my birthday. So let's look at the code again. This is the code we wrote last time. And ignoring the rest of the script for now, this is the function we wrote just to compare the month and the day to tell us whether our birthday is less. Well, here's where it's called. We're comparing the current month and day with your birth month and day. And it's going to say, is the current month and day before your birth month and day? And in order to do that comparison, it has to look at both the month and the day. So if the months if the current month is less than, or if the first month is less than the second month, then we'll say it's less. If the months are equal and the days are less, or the first month day is less than the second, then we'll say again it's less. In all other cases, we'll say it's true. So this is made a little bit complicated by the fact that we have to actually write some, a couple of different conditional statements. It's more complicated than just comparing a single value like an integer, because of the fact that we're having to compare both the month and the day. So this kind of thing comes up all the time, but in this particular case, I'm thinking, what if there were a way to make this simpler? What if we could express the month and the day as a single value? Now it happens that the datetime class has a property called day of year, and that seems promising. It's going to turn out that that's not going to do what we want. But just to first of all, let's get the current date, and let's look at the day of year property. So today is March 27th, and it says the day of year is 86. So this is the 86th day of the current year. What does that mean exactly? Well, let's consider some other cases. We can take, let's say, January 1st of 2019, and then we'll cast that to a date time using these square brackets. So we're going to convert this string to a date time object, and then access its day of year property. So it's January 1st, so it's the first day of the year. Day of year is 1. January 2nd, day of year is 2. What about February 1st? Day of year is 32. So there are 31 days in March, so the first day of February is the 32nd day of the year. What about March 1st? Well, in 2019 is not a leap year, so there are 28 days in February, so 32 plus 28 gives us 60. But March 1st of 2020, which is a leap year, the same month and day has a different day of year. So since we're comparing, this is not what we want for comparing our birthdays with, because our birth year is different than the current year, or can be different than the current year. One of those might be a leap year and one might not be. So if we relied on day of year to do our comparison, that's not going to always give us the right result. So we have to do something else. Well, here's another possibility. What if we could simply express both the month and the day as a single number? And one way to do that, let's just say, for example, let's take the current date and assign it to a variable. Let's say now equals get date. Excuse me. So now is a month, and now it has a day, right? Well, the month is more significant than the day, so we want to make sure that the month is more important than the day when we compare them. But we'd like to have a single value that captures both the month and the day. Well, we could just take the month, multiply it by 100, and add the day. So March 27th just becomes 327. Or if it were October 27th, it would be 1027. And we know that the day is never going to interfere with the month because the lower two digits are always going to be the day, because the day is never going to be greater than or equal to 100. And the month is always going to be starting at the hundreds place. So if we did that, we can simply compare the month and the day. Like, for example, if my birthday is March 1st of 2000, then the month and day of that would be 301, right? So let's actually do this. Let's say date time of March 1st, 2000. Okay, and then we say date.month times 100 plus date.day. March 1st of 2. Oops, that was supposed to be a plus date.day. Okay, so March 1st just simply becomes 301. And we can say, okay, 301 is less than 327, so it's not yet my birthday. Or rather, 301 is my birthday, 327 is the current month and day, and therefore it's after my birthday. Okay, so let's look at how we can use that in our script. First of all, we can write a function to do what we just did. We'll call it get month day. And it takes two date time objects, or it takes a single date time object, date time. So we're going to give it a type just because we want it to be just to be explicit about the type. It's helpful in this case. It allows PowerShell to give us an error if we pass something that's not a date. And then we'll simply take the month times 100 and add the day. And I'll capitalize date just because I feel like it. Because that's usually the convention with parameters. So we don't really need this whole complicated function to compare them anymore. Instead, we have our current date now, and we have our birthday, and we want to know if now is less than the birthday. So instead of writing this if statement down here, we can say, well, we can break it into multiple statements. So we can say, well, well, let's say get month day of now. Okay. So this is going to give us a single number that represents the month, the current month and day. And is that less than the get month day of birthday? And put that whole thing in an if. Okay, now our script is quite a bit simpler. Let's see if it actually works. So before, let's just type the same commands we did before here. So I'm going to select that, Control C, Control V, and we get the same result as before for that one. Let's try the second one. I'll just add it here, 327. And again, we get the same result as before. It's exactly my birthday, 330. And now we get the same result as before because it's not yet my birthday. And just for a different example, October 1st. Okay, and again, it's not yet my birthday. So it does the right thing. Let's go back and review this. So the point of this then is that sometimes by just finding a different way to express a value, you can actually simplify your logic. In this case, what we did was we figured out that we could have a single number that represents both the month and day, and that comparing that number will allow us, comparing that single integer will allow us to compare whether the month and day is greater or less, more simply than we did before when we looked at the month and date independently. So there are a lot of times in programming that finding that the obvious way of doing something is not always the simplest way of doing something. Sometimes if you think a little bit creatively, you can find an alternative that simplifies your code and makes it easier to understand. And it's always kind of fun when you have a aha moment that allows you to do that. It's part of the joy of programming. So I hope you enjoyed this little diversion, and talk to you next time.